Welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast. We're back with another Big 12 team preview here with the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Before we dive in, if you have been liking our content, please go ahead and like and subscribe. But now taking a look at Oklahoma State, high turnover roster here, kind of headlined by bringing in Kanye, Clary, who only played, like 6 or 7 games last year at Mississippi State. Had kind of a rocky exit from Penn State, so it's been a bit since we've really seen him playing good basketball. But he's got to be at least the main strength of this offense, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say that. I think in general, it's just the improved on-ball skill for this offense. I mean, they had guys like Arturo Dean and Khalil Brantley. Who else did they have on this roster? Like Bryce Thompson, just not really efficient offensive players, particularly in a half-court setting. But, I mean, Steve Lutz, they want to run in transition at will, and they're going to be able to do that again with this roster. But I think having the more stable on-ball skill and like initiators is gonna help this team in a half-court setting. They really struggled in the half-court last year, and Kanye Clary is going to be the biggest reason. Like you mentioned, he's had a rough last couple of years. He got dismissed from Penn State and only played 7 games last year, but he's been a productive ball guard when he's playing in a normal setting. Like when he was playing consistent minutes at Penn State, he was a really good player, averaged 16.7 points a game, 2.8 assists, and that was 2 years ago. And I think his pick and roll operation is going to be pretty key for an Oklahoma State offense that they struggled to generate really anything in the half court setting. At Penn State, he was 98th percentile in pick and roll frequency, 76th percentile in efficiency. It's impressive for him to do that on that Penn State offense that really struggled to provide any help for him. And then there's some other guys on this roster that, I mean, I think they've added some perimeter scoring options, particularly like shooting wise, like with Anthony Roy. Not completely sure what we're going to get from him at the Big 12 level, but he's a really talented shooter and he can do it off the bounce, and he's a quality movement shooter as well. A guy like Isaiah Coleman, who I think can play a little bit better in a more of an off-ball role. Vyctorius Miller, another guy like Ryan Crotty, and Jalen Curry can provide some shooting as well. But overall, I definitely think they improved in a half-court setting. They shot it where they were in the 13th percentile in half-court efficiency last year. So I think we have a major upgrade there.
Yeah, I think, like you said, Kanye Clary is going to kind of like run the show for this team. We've seen him when he is playing, which it's been a while. He really can orchestrate an offense and really get going and playing pick and roll and be great on the ball. I think there is more in the tank from Vyctorius Miller. I think maybe a change in scenery. He's a 4-star recruit that has good traits. He was at LSU, kind of just struggled to really find his way last year on a pretty poor LSU team in the best country or best conference in the country last year. So I think we could see, especially with increased opportunity for him, a little bit of a breakout because I think he's going to have plenty of chances to break out and have more responsibility on the offensive end. For me, this offense, I mean, there are a couple of weaknesses that I had jotted down. There are a couple of I'm not sold completely on the shooting. Like, I know you mentioned it's improved, but I still am a little bit skeptical of Anthony Roy. We've talked about not really sure how he's going to look at the Big 12 level. Of course, shooting typically translates regardless of whether you're shooting at the Universal Studios 3-point contest or if you're shooting in the Big 12. But, it's still a jump in competition. I think the freshman there, the 22-year-old, I don't even know what they're considering him, I guess, class-wise, coming from Greece. Vyctorius Mantzoukis, I think is how you say it. But
Close enough.
Yeah, but he can really shoot it. It seems like I think he has pretty deep range that this team will certainly tap into. I would think, right? But outside of that, I do have some concerns with like the overall shooting of this roster. Like Kanye Clary's been an okay shooter for his career, 34% career shooter. Vyctorius Miller's okay. Coleman's okay. Like Jalen Curry's okay. They're all kind of in that like low 30s%, which nothing really jumps off the page outside of Roy and kind of what I project out of Mantzoukas. And then the scoring on the interior, I'm not overly high on. I don't think this team's going to be very good on the offensive glass at all. There just isn't really, there aren't really any guys to get on the offensive glass from how I see it. Like Christian Coleman is solid on the glass, 12.1% offensive rebound rate. But then you have like a guy like Parsifala who doesn't really get on the offensive glass at all, despite being, 6'9". Maybe Mantzoukas at 6'9" can get on the glass a little bit, but like there's just not a ton of like front court size here to make a real impact on the interior on this offensive unit.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's kind of a point of emphasis for Lutz teams to get on the glass, but they just don't really have much of the personnel to do so. So I think they'd be closer to average in the Big 12 just due to it, being a point of emphasis. But I'm a little bit worried about how the bigs just fit in this scheme, in a fast-paced scheme. Like I think Coleman probably fits at the 4, but a little bit worried about the 5-man rotation of Fala. I think Mantzoukas can play some small ball 5. I think he's mostly going to be playing the 4. They don't really get up and down the floor all that well. And then, 4-star Ben Ahmed is more of a post-up oriented big, just like Parsifala, which I think that'll help in a half-court offense, but I just don't really see how it fits an offense that's going to be getting up and down the floor pretty much at will. It's a little bit dicey for me. So that's really the only thing I had to add. I like the shooting more from like an upside perspective, but there is opportunity for it to be just as poor as it was last year. They were like 206th in 3-point percentage. I think it probably ends up around there, but I just think they have a little bit of extra talent and upside from that perspective. But yeah, I am a little bit worried about the big man rotation.
For sure. Now shifting gears to the defensive side, what do you see here for strengths?
Yeah, I think they'll force turnovers at a pretty high clip, as always with the Steve Lutz defense. His teams have been top 100 in all 4 seasons as a head coach, including 35th nationally in his first season at Oklahoma State. Wouldn't say I like the roster from this regard as much as last year. Like you lose Arturo Dean, that hurts quite a bit. He had a 5.6% steal rate last year, which was second in the entire country. But I think the aggressive style is going to lead to forcing turnovers regardless. Like guys like Isaiah Coleman, Jalen Curry, and even Kanye Clary, I think should fit fairly well here. And a guy like Anthony Roy is at least going to gamble as a defender. I don't like him as an on-ball defender really at all, but he's going to get in the lanes and make some plays, which I think fits the scheme a little bit. And then there's also some positional size on the wings to be a little bit interchangeable. I think they lack some of that throughout the rest of the roster, but I do think there's some guys that you can throw in there in Coleman, and actually both Colemans I think can be in there and guard multiple positions.
Yeah, I think all that's true. I think they're going to have to force some turnovers. I do have concerns with the front court on the defensive end as well. Guys like Parsifala, who he's 6'9", but like not a rim protector, doesn't really rebound that well on the defensive end. Obviously, you mentioned 4-star Ben Ahmed at 6'10". We'll see what he's able to bring to the table. I wouldn't project him to have like an overly large role right away. Then you've got Christian Coleman, who has been solid as a 3% block rate guy, decent on the defensive glass. I just think overall they're going to struggle to protect the rim with this group because it's a little bit uncertain, and I think they're probably going to struggle in the defensive glass as well, which is why they're probably going to have to lean on their guards and wings to hopefully force turnovers to, keep the ball out of the paint, because I think it's just not very good up front.
Yeah, I think as a whole, this defense is going to regress quite a bit, and I think rim protection being like a major red flag is part of the reason. Like you mentioned, like I don't think Ben Ahmed's really ready, and he's definitely not ready on the defensive end. Like he's a wide set guy. He's 6'10", like he's probably 300 to 310 pounds. Like he's a wide body who's at least going to be fine on the defensive glass for you, but Parsifala is not a good defender in a man scheme. Like at Oregon State, they played a ton of zone, so you could kind of mask his deficiencies a little bit. But if he's gonna have to play more man and be somewhat of a primary rim protector, I'm pretty concerned. He doesn't even rebound that well either. He had a 12% defensive rebound rate. Playing in his own might make that look a little bit different, but overall, it's pretty ugly up front. Maybe a guy like Rob Jennings, who played a decent amount last year, can help, but he's only 6'7". Yeah, and you add in that this is probably a worse perimeter group, and I don't see them finishing near 58th in adjusted defense this season. I have some concerns in pretty much every area besides forcing turnovers. So, yeah, overall, I don't really love the outlook of this Oklahoma State roster. I think like Torvik's a lot higher on Oklahoma State than I am. Certainly, I have them closer to the bottom of this league, and he's got about like 9th, like middle of the pack. I just don't really see that as a possibility.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, what do you see ceiling and floor for this team? I mean, me personally, I kind of see them more in that, like, I see maybe the ceiling at like 9 or 10, and floor is like, I don't know if it's the bottom, but it's like 16th or 17th for me, because I don't see a ton of great talent on this team, and obviously the front court is a big question mark, and it's not even really a question mark. It's just like we know what it is, and it's not that great, right?
Yeah, like I have their ceiling at 9th. Like if I have their ceiling right where Torvik has them, like as their, that's probably his mean outcome for this team. I think we're a little bit off the mark there, and the potential bubble conversation. I think when you're at the 9th best team in the Big 12, you can get into that conversation, but I personally don't see it with this group. And the floor is bottom 3. I'm not sure if it's the bottom because there's a couple special teams that we reserve for the bottom on this podcast, but I think being like 14th, or there's 16 teams in this league, right? Is it 16?
Are there 16?
I think it's 16. So I think 14th.
Yeah,
14th is like a real possibility for this team. I'm a little bit worried.
Yeah, for sure. Now, MVP, I think it's Kanye, Clary, right? I think it's pretty cut and dry there. But X factor, who'd you go with for Oklahoma State?
I went with Vyctorius Mantzoukas. I think his upside as an offensive player, particularly spacing the floor, and if he can provide some presence, like rebounding presence, like rim protection presence at the 5, I think he can be a real boost for this team. So ultimately I went with Mantzoukas I think his shooting ability is real, and he's going to be able to make an impact from night number 1. I'm not completely sure if he's a 5. He doesn't move all that well in space to play the 4. So I think he's going to have to be great as a 5-man to uphold like any sort of defense that's close to last season's.
Yeah. I considered going there. I went Vyctorius Miller for my X factor, just as like a secondary creator for this team. 6'5", once a 4-star, going to LSU. I think there's more in the tank for him, and if he can kind of get there, I think the offense projects a little bit better. I think he's going to be important to helping Kanye, Clary, on the offensive end. But I think I was going to go Mantzoukas as well. I felt like Vyctorius Miller has has a lot more upside on both ends to contribute a little bit more. Now, before we wrap things up, bold prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bold prediction. It doesn't seem like it's bold to me, at least. I think it's more bold to like the projection sites. Like Torvik has them at 48th in the country right now. I think they finished 86th last year. I think they finish way closer to 86th than they do to like the top 40. I'll say that they're borderline worse than last season, and they're not even going to sniff the tournament, really, in my opinion. Nobody's getting fired here. I think they like Steve Lutz enough to where like two like rather poor seasons to start his career, he's going to be just fine if he can accumulate a good roster. He can make a tournament and potentially go on a run, but ultimately, I just don't see it with this group.
Yeah, my bold prediction not going to be what Cowboy fans want to hear because their sports teams are in complete disarray. I mean, for anyone that's an Oklahoma State football fan, they lost by 66 a couple weeks ago to another Power 5 team. Like that's ridiculous. But my prediction, Torvik has them at 9th. I have them personally. I think they finish like 14th in this league. So again, similar to you, like they're not finishing. It's not that bold to me because I don't think they're that good. But I think that obviously based on where Torvik projects them, it's bold to Torvik. So I'm going to say they finish 14th, and they're also like not going to make the tournament.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see when Ken Palm comes out with his rankings where he's going to have them. If he has them at like in the 40s too, I'm going to start questioning my analysis of this roster really. But I mean, the name of the game now is being able to evaluate talent, being able to evaluate fit in certain schemes. And sometimes I don't really care what a projection site says. Like if I have an opinion, I have an opinion.
Yeah, for sure. So that's it for the Cowboys. Thanks for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast, and we'll see you next time.